Yeah, so a couple weeks ago we had some discussion about updates with our aggregation programs. So we wanted to take a few minutes and invite Kevin Lauterjung with Community Energy Advisors in. We have a presentation that we're going to pull up here on the screen here in a moment. And I've asked Kevin just to kind of walk us through where we are currently with our gas aggregation program, which we continue to shop the market, and then also what the future holds with our electrical aggregation program. So this is meant to be interactive.
Yep.
So certainly as we walk through these slides, if there's any questions, please don't hesitate to ask some questions, and we'll go from there. So this is Kevin Lauterjung. Again, Kevin is our exclusive energy broker with Community Energy Advisors, and helps manage both our gas and electric aggregation programs.
Thank you, Matt. Good morning, commissioners. Good morning. I'm introducing a little bit of education into this, as well as the update on where we are with the aggregation program. And I'm going to structure it by focusing on natural gas first, because our natural gas program is currently not active. Our electric program runs through April. So I'm going to focus on where we are in the process of getting a new supply contract to reactivate the natural gas program. If we could please move to the second slide. Next slide, please. Great. So there, just want to take a step back and briefly review what some of the objectives are of a government aggregation program. First and foremost, it is to, through aggregating a large load, negotiate favorable pricing. There's some secondary reasons for having a government aggregation program, and it's protection. It's protection against market spikes, because they're typically a fixed rate that's locked in for a period of time as the market tends to be volatile. And then ultimately, when we are participants in a government aggregation program, we're under a contract. And in that way, it affords some protection from bad market actors, door-to-door sales, phone calls that misrepresent who they are, and getting our residents in contracts that lock them into a bad rate or have a bait and switch component to it where there's a bad rate down the road. Talk about some of the challenging things in the market and ultimately why we didn't go into a new supply rate or a new product immediately when our current natural gas supply contract ended in June. Let's talk about bearish factors. What are bearish factors? What's tending to drive market prices down? Because natural gas is a commodity that is traded and hedged. What's driving it down is we have record high production of natural gas, and there's ample storage. This summer, despite the hot summer that we had, we're at 5-year highs of storage nationally for natural gas. That tends to keep natural gas prices suppressed. Of course, the market's always looking forward at how much storage are we likely to deplete this winter, which is a big time when we nationally are using a lot of natural gas. What are the bullish factors? What's driving up prices? What's driving up prices are what we hear all the time about data centers and big data. And there's forecast to be more demand for electricity from these data centers. In our region of the grid, natural gas is about 50% of the generation. We know there's nuclear plants. We know there's actually some coal plants have come online. And the coal plants are having a tendency to drive up some of our electricity prices. But in our grid, it's called the PJM region, the forecast is that there will be an additional 30 gigawatts of electricity requirements by 2030. So next 5 years, that 30 additional gigawatts is about a 30% increase in the demand on our grid. That's having a tendency to drive up gas prices because we need to have enough gas to meet that demand. And finally, this is the wild card because there's factors driving prices up and factors driving prices down, but it's been a roller coaster ride, and a lot of it has to do with not one national policy or the other, but inconsistency of national policy. And it's difficult to do $1 billion or $5 billion capital investment when we don't know what the national policy is going to be, if there's going to be additional taxes, say, on developing another natural gas fired power plant. And finally, and this is really the thesis of the presentation here, is what is really has challenged us to get to a place where we're comfortable and confident with a natural gas price for our government aggregation program is that the supply price that we negotiate is based on futures pricing. So a 12-month contract, the suppliers are looking to go out and hedge based on each of the usage projections for each of those months out into the future. The comparison price that we have is what's called the standard choice offer through the utility company, and that rate is based on the closing price the day before the next month. So the price that we see on our September bill is based on the trading price on the last day of August. So, and what's been happening is on those last and next to last trading day, when we get to what's called the prompt month, the next month, the price has been dropping. So we've been seeing this big spread between what the futures price has been and what our actual price has been for the SCO. Now, we talked about there's a number of reasons why we have a government aggregation product, and it's not necessarily to have the lowest price all the time, it's to provide protection. I'm going to share, I have a slide in here that illustrates what that phenomenon where this prompt month is coming in lower. Here's where we are today with our natural gas program, though. We have a certificate as a county. Medina County is a government aggregator through September of 2026. Our last supply contract expired in June of 2025. It was a 15-month contract. There were about 12,500 residents and small commercial natural gas users that were enrolled in the program. At the end of the program, they all went back to what's called the SCO. So all of the residents that were participating in the program are now with the standard choice offer. If we go to the next slide, please. Let's talk about historic program performance, and then we're going to talk about the bid and the future. You can see that the dotted line is what our contracted price has been. The blue line is Columbia Gas, and the red line is what used to be called Dominion East Ohio. Now it's called Enbridge. That's the utility company. There's actually a $2.75 spread in that they both have the NYMEX rate in it, but they have an adder that the utility company rate has, and there's a $2.75 spread. If you look on the left-hand side of the curve, you can see the dotted line is just on the bottom of the solid line. For the first 4 or 5 years of the program, the negotiated contract rate was a nickel off the SCO. Whatever the SCO came in at, it was going to be a guaranteed 5 cents savings, for example. Or it was, at one point, it was a 3% off of the adder savings, and that's why it was tracking. And so you can see where the dashed line between summer 2022 and winter of 2024, our contracted rate was above what those SCO prices came in at. And so over the 98 months of the program's existence since November of 16, the program rate has been lower. It's beat the SCO price 69 of the 98 months. Next slide, please. Here's the RFP update. the incumbent supplier, Constellation, and probably the majority of the time, the incumbent supplier is in the best position to win the renewal. They know more about the book of business. Constellation, rather, because of the volatility in the market, they just ceased operations. They are no longer, they at this time are not renewing natural gas government aggregation, and they're deciding when they're going to get back into the program. So we issued the RFP and got pricing back from 2 other suppliers. And what you see here, if we made a decision today, we could likely start the program back in November. We're probably looking at a December start date. So if you go to the next slide, please. Our current best supplier pricing would be for a December start. And if you look at that table in the lower right-hand corner, you'll see the COH SCO forecast and the Enbridge SCO forecast. That's what our analyst our analyst has put together, looking at what the futures market is for natural gas and adding that adder. So it's a weighted average of what the futures market is telling us the price is going to be for Columbia gas for the next 12 months. And you can see in Columbia, that forecast is $6.96 per MCF. And we've got a best program price that comes in just under that at $6.87. That hasn't been happening for the last 4 or 5 months. So it represents a break and a trend that we've been watching for the last couple of weeks. For Enbridge, which is about 10% of our program volume, Enbridge, our best program price is 40 cents higher than what we forecast the SCO or the SCO price to be for Enbridge. If we could go to the next slide, please, because this is just a graphic presentation.
The projection doesn't do a 24-month project. They're not comfortable.
Well,
Well,
we could project it. We know what all the NYMEX numbers are.
Mm-hmm.
The adder gets updated in April, so it's difficult to go out beyond that.
Right.
Unless we just assume there's no change in an adder, and I haven't seen that happen before. So it kind of sticks to what we know. So if you look at the graphic depiction, the dashed line is that SCO is the futures forecast, right? And then you can see up top, the green line is the 12-month price that we have. So we're looking for the maximum amount of area of the dashed line over the green line. And you'll notice that where the rate that we have from the suppliers now, where it is best, where there's the most room under that curve, it's in the winter months. And that's when we consume the most natural gas. And that's how we're able to get a weighted average price that's better, better at the contracted rate than for the SCO. And then you can see down in Enbridge at the bottom, you can see that it's at, the contracted price is at where we're forecasting the highest SCO price would be. The next slide is just to show you, this is the phenomenon that I was talking about, where the current month real-time NYMEX price is dropping the last few days at the end of the month for the following month. What these colored lines are different snapshots in time of the NYMEX natural gas rate. The yellow line is February 10th. The green line is April 10th. The red line is June 10th. And then we've got an August 11th. So we were taking these at 2-month intervals. And if you look at July 2025, because when we originally we're looking to renew the program, that would have been the first month of the program, July 2025. And if you work your way up, that's the third diamond from the left. All right? If you work your way up, when we were looking at the NYMEX on February 12th, and we're trying to renew for July, the NYMEX was at $3.80. And then in April, 2 months later, it was at $4. And then in June, it came down to $3.50. So, but in June, it would have been too late. We would have had to start in August or September. Now look where it actually closed. It closed at $3.20. So, and you can see how the other, since we've been looking at it for May, June, July, and August, how much farther those diamonds, which is the price the utility company uses for our standard rate, versus what our price would have been had we locked in based on where the supplier would hedge based on the futures markets during those other dates. Now look at the blue line, 811. It's come down, and there's not a lot of room for those diamonds, to keep that analogy going, to get below them, because there's historically the NYMEX kind of bottoms out at $2.50. And we're at the $3 range. And so I'm recommending that it's time to negotiate a best price and reactivate the government aggregation program. It's a risk management tool. It's an optional tool for our residents to participate in. There's much more risk. There's much more room for the market to go up than there is for the market to come down. So the market conditions now are where we've got a reasonable estimation of coming in at a supply rate that's about at the SCO rate, that alternative rate if we were with the utility company. And so that's it on the natural gas. I have some educational slides on electricity. I want to be respectful of your time.
Are there implications to our PUCO certificate if we don't re-up
No.
that we can renew that certificate?
Correct.
Even if we're not under a current aggregation?
Correct.
I just want to make sure that wasn't
Right.
factoring in. And then this chart I thought was noteworthy because you're talking about the consumption
Right.
peaks when the price peaks.
Yes.
But all this it's all price oriented. Do you have the data relative to consumption? Meaning, I think your point was noteworthy that because when we tend to get the calls on this program is when we're in this part of the graph.
Right.
And our number is
That's
above.
true.
Because they, and I
Right.
would too, I do the same thing. I look at what I'm paying.
Right.
Relative to what my provider would charge me at that point in time.
Right.
But knowing that the consumption spike corresponds with the price being fixed in a favorable way, do you have that data to support those
we do.
decisions? Because that would
We
be
do.
helpful for me to see too.
Because that data is what we use to create that weighted average.
Yeah, yeah.
So multiplying each month
Because
price.
the excess I'm paying in my low usage months
That's
doesn't
right.
overcome the savings I realize
right.
in the high usage months.
That's right.
Yeah, got it.
So
Thanks.
your recommendation is,
My recommendation is to ride this trend, negotiate our best price, let the suppliers know that we're ready to execute, try to squeeze as much margin as we can out of them, and do a short-term 12-month contract so that we're not locked in too high or too low, and we get to reevaluate it if the market settles down and we can get our footing for a renewal.
There's no shorter term than 12 months?
There's no shorter term than 12 months. No.
okay. That seems reasonable to me.
Yep.
Given the
Okay.
date and where we're at. Okay.
Do you want to look at electricity, or have I overstayed my time?
I don't know how to answer that question.
But-
No,
well,
yeah, if there's some highlights there you can hit
Okay.
for us.
So if we could go to the next slide, please. On natural gas, we have 12,500 folks or accounts that were enrolled. In electricity, we have 19,500 that are enrolled. The certificate expires about the same time. Your certification, the county certification as a government aggregator, we're in a rate of 605. Everybody who's participating loves that rate because the standard utility rate's about 9 cents right now. And we did design a green product when we did the last contract back in May of 2022. And our participation in green products was over 20 last September. It was over 20 and now it's at 8. So it's come down just a little bit, but it's nice to be able to offer that as an alternative to customers. Go to the next slide, please. So this is a little bit different chart. You only have one utility company in electricity, and you can see those bumps are every summer. The standard utility rate price goes up when we're consuming the most. And you can see just very few, in fact, for electricity, about 70% of the months, the program rate has beat the standard utility rate. So about 70% of the time, 54 of the 76 months. But you can see the area under the curve, if you look since April of 2023, in that summer, our standard utility rate went to 12 cents. This is the protection aspect that we're talking about. Protection against these huge spikes in the middle of the summer or in the gas program in the middle of the winter kind of thing. Here's the next slide, please. It's been a really interesting time. When we talked about the data centers, that orange box represents a 900% increase in what we're paying for capacity. So that you can see a rate that we had in 2024, all in of 4.5 cents, is now 8.7 cents. And what you can see is the energy markets, which are the traded commodities for electricity, has actually gone up by 25% in the last year and a half. But then that orange box, what we pay for capacity. Capacity is what we pay through an auction process to have generators prepared to come online when the utility company says, we're going to have a peak demand, and if we don't get more generation in to meet what our customers are demanding, we're going to have a brownout or a blackout. So they run this auction, and last time the auction price came in really, really high. So let me show you these two components real quick. First slide will be energy. Next slide, please. That shows that 25% increase. If you look at 2022 on the far left, these are calendar year strips of energy that were trading at $38 a megawatt hour. That's 3.8 cents. Now, if you look on the far right, that's today. The same calendar year strips for 26 through 2030, 2026 through 2030, are trading in the $48 range, or 4.8 cents. So that was that first blue block on that last graph. Here's the really interesting one. On the next slide, please. This is capacity. So the light blue bar on each of these groupings is the first energy capacity price. And so you can see that the auction price for the capacity year of 2022, 2023, it's a June through May, it was $50 per megawatt day. $50 per megawatt day. That would be 5 cents per kilowatt day. If you look at what happened that started this June, this is why all of our electricity rates went up. That went from June of 2025 to May of 2026. The auction came in at $270. And when you divide that by the number of kilowatt hours we consume, that's how you get the rate that goes into your rate. The auction has already happened for next year that starts next June, and it came in higher. It was an 800% jump and a 25% jump. We're over 90%. The auction hasn't happened for June of 2027 through May of 2028, but FERC, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, they issued a ruling of a max and a min. The auction, by regulation, is going to come in between that max and the min. It's the same thing that was in place for 26 and 27, and it came in at the max. So the forecast for capacity is that we're going to continue to pay these high prices for capacity. And again, this is in preparation for what we think we're going to need to meet the data center and crypto mining markets. So last slide is just the wrap up. We discussed multiple objectives of the GovAg programs, the volatile and challenging energy markets. Suppliers are being very cautious. They always add a risk premium when they do a contracted rate. They're adding more right now because they've never seen an 800% jump in capacity cost. The reason we're recommending to go ahead and get a new supply contract for natural gas is because we've closed the gap and we think we can get within a reasonable range to afford our residents with some protection against the upside of the market. And we're looking to negotiate a best and final and come back to you with a contract to execute
And that would be in the next couple months, next month,
the next week.
next week,
Yeah.
even faster.
So we're gonna be going RFP for the electric.
And the RFP for the electric will be issued next week. Yep, we've,
Right.
we've
Okay,
prepared
okay.
that and been working with
Got it,
lawyers
got it.
over the last month, and that's ready to go out.
Because the current
for
contract ends in April.
Yes, sir.
Okay, got it. Okay,
Okay.
Great.
Thank you.
For the updates.
very good.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.